winners. It's day 2 of week 3. Yesterday we looked at character and setting, and today we get to look at from problem to solution or resolution. Resolving a problem, solving it, resolving it. From problem to solution. Reading fiction is exciting because the problem plays a big role in that. You wouldn't read the book if there wasn't something holding your attention. And so an author begins with a hook. And the hook usually tells you what the problem or the situation is. And what keeps you reading that book is how they develop the problem and work towards a solution and resolve the problem. So a writer and a reader discovers, and a writer creates, a reader discovers the problem solution like roller coaster. So they start with a hook, and they learn the characters and the setting. Then they recognize the problem. Then there's action that rises. Then the problem, like, whoa, this is huge, and how they start to resolve it, and it comes down, and then to the happy ending. I drew the little chart there for you, but here are the terms. You have your hook, and you'll learn the characters and the setting, and it catches you. Sometimes you have to read further into the book to get hooked, but stick with it. I had a goal last summer. Every book I started, I had to finish no matter what, and I was usually very glad I did. Then you discover the problem. The characters encounter challenges or problems. Then the reader can find all the ways they build upon the problem. Maybe the conflict grows. Maybe more people come into the conflict, or more issues arrive to create the problem. Then the very climax, the peak, like it can't get any worse, it's got to get better. And then the resolution starts, and the challenges are overcome. Today, if you haven't read it yourself already, I'm going to read you pages 2 and 3 from the Red Tail Angels. And as I read this to you, I want you to see if you can recognize or identify the problem here. Are you ready? Here we go. Chapter 1. Tuskegee Army Airfield, Tuskegee, Alabama, April of 1943. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the only sound coming from the barracks was the slow, measured breathing of men deep in sleep. Only one was awake. Charlie held a flashlight over the book on his lap, but his gaze was set on the photograph tucked into the crease between the pages. From the picture, a handsome man in suit and tie stared back at him, a mischievous look in his eyes. This was his pop. Now gray and retired, his father had sent him off to Tuskegee 2 years ago with a stern direction. Now, you show those men what it means to be a fighter. This is no small thing. The Army finally having us fly planes. Do me proud, but most of all, you come back alive. You understand? Charlie felt the weight of many people on his shoulders, but he had merely nodded and given Pop a quick hug. He ran to the bus waiting for him and refused to look back. He hadn't wanted his father to see the fear on his face, the fear that was coursing through his whole body. Now, as he sat in the dark of the barracks, Charlie felt that same overwhelming dread. Tomorrow morning, the squadron was shipping out. And despite months of training filled with countless practice missions, Charlie wondered if he was really ready. A man heading into war was like a blind man walking along the edge of a cliff. Would he sense and successfully respond to the dangers around him? Or would one misstep lead him to death? The story builds in detail, and it tells us more about Charlie's problem, and it creates tension and anticipation. What's going to happen? For example, the colonel tells the squad they are the first African-American air squadron, and then Tex encounters a less than friendly American soldier. Charlie's problem becomes more complicated, and we reach the climax, or the most exciting part of the book, when Charlie and his friends are in air battle. And that's really exciting. So that would be part of the climb and the climax. Oh my gosh, we've grown all this way to this point, and now they are in battle. What's going to happen, and how will the story turn? Let me jump ahead to page 18, and we'll discuss the event. They found an empty booth in the corner, and Charlie looked around and saw several groups of young women engaged in lively conversations with cups of cappuccino in front of them. Across the room there was a large table of white American airmen. It was hard not to notice them, their loud voices booming throughout the cafe. Charlie noticed that many of the women at the tables close to them kept looking over at the other men. He could only guess that each of them was chiming in about which young American was the best, or had the nicest eyes or the brightest smile. At first, these other men didn't even notice that Charlie and his squad mates had come into the cafe. But suddenly, a deep voice echoed across the room. "Well, look who's joined us. It's those colored airmen from the airman hesitated. What do they call it? The elephant tusks? Tuskegee, one of his buddies offered. The two men approached the squadron's table, and Charlie could sense Tex tensing up next to him in the booth. Oh, that's right. Tuskegee Airmen. And as I see it, it's just some kind of failed military experiment. All right, so do you see the problem? The Tuskegee Airmen are being ridiculed and harassed by this other airman. Definitely, that is a huge problem in this conflict resolution, and the author's thrown in another twist to the plot and to the storyline. I'm going to ask you in Seesaw to answer some questions for me. I want you to answer, why is it important to recognize a problem in a story? And why is it important to understand why a problem is resolved? Right? Why is it important to be able to understand and recognize a problem in a story? And why is it important to understand why it's resolved? I'll have the reading in there, the book link, and then a slide for you to respond on. We're doing some deeper thinking this week, and I appreciate y'all working so hard with me. See you later.